Surprise, everybody. Happy Monday. How's it going? My name is Stuart Davis here on a very special canceled softball Monday edition of A Flawed Man of God. I am your host, Stuart Davis. I am a flawed man of God. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is to talk about Christ. If you are interested in learning more about him, starting a relationship with God, if you are interested in something is a curiosity or whatever, tugging at you to learn more about what happens beyond your life here on earth, welcome to the show. My show is really dedicated or started because of that concept. If you are here because you already are a Christian, or you are not, but just enjoy hearing discussions on Christian topics or seeing Christian takes and opinions on current events or different topics, just getting our perspective, also welcome to the program. That's what we do here. We talk about God. We talk about our issues. We talk about how Scripture makes us feel. And by all means, be part of the conversation. The chat is open, and I am still a very small channel, so if you participate, you will get read. And having said that, talking about my small channel, I am going to be getting a rather large guest to come here and talk on this show about homeschooling, and he is going to be followed with some other folks. It is the homeschooling episode that I've been talking about for a while, and it will be right now. It is scheduled for May 31st. That's the Tuesday after Memorial Day, and it will be starring myself, The Rapture, Christian Mario, and Nick Rekieta from Rekieta Law. That is going to be a big event for this channel, and hopefully very edifying for anybody who chooses to tune in, and hopefully we will get a lot of exposure out of that, and a lot of good content for people, but also draw views, draw subscribers, draw people in to be part of the conversation. So with that said, that's my big part for tonight. That's my big news, and we will get into the story at large. So why am I here tonight? I know I tell you it's softball season, and I am the coach, but we are rained out tonight. We were rained out. Actually, it might get rained out. It might get rained out. Ostensibly, we're canceled because the field we were going to play on, and we had the late games tonight. The field we were going to play on does not have working lights on it, and so the president of the league reached out to me and the other team coach, and he let us know what was going on. So we were trying to figure out that we want to play one tonight and maybe reschedule another. We played 2 games tonight. We just against the same team. You just play 1 hour-long game and then another hour-long game, and you just swap who's home. But we were talking about playing one. And ended up being like, look, let's just keep it simple. Just reschedule both of them. It's probably supposed to rain tonight by the time. Let me check the forecast. It was drizzling a little bit when I got home. I don't know what it's doing right now. Yeah, while I wait for that to load. It says it's raining right now. And it is going to be raining for the duration. So we probably won't be missing out. So let's call it a rain delay. PPD. And so I'll be able to sit down, back, relax, do this stream, which I love doing, and then also watch some Cincinnati Reds lose to the Cubs, because we are terrible this year. But that's my cross to bear, not yours. Tonight we are going to be talking about something that I had two big articles come across today. One we were expecting, the other one, this one just kind of flew under the radar and popped up, and that was the first one was the Southern Baptist Convention report on sexual abuse and covering it up. That is not going to be what we're going to be covering tonight. I am trying to get somebody else to come up who has more knowledge on the who has more knowledge on that than I do, and just kind of give us a rundown on what's going on with the Southern Baptist Convention. It is a huge organization. I believe it might even be the biggest single Christian denomination in America. That makes it the largest religious denomination in America, and they are going through some pains right now. But SBC has been SBC's been screwing around a lot lately, and this is one of the reasons why I enjoy. Forgot I didn't put this in my opening. I generally do. I'm a Protestant. I'm non-denominational. Everybody assumes, well, I'm Baptist because I say I'm non-denominational, or I'm evangelical, or I'm um, charismatic. As a charismatic, no, I don't have any charisma. I am an Anabaptist. I am an Anabaptist. I do believe that baptism should come when you accept Christ knowingly and in your heart. That is when baptism should occur. That is one of the few things I say that I don't have to subscribe to any doctrines. I do consider myself leaning towards being an Anabaptist. So just to be perfectly honest with you guys, but that's not tonight's story. Tonight's story is a megachurch with an issue, according to the Daily Beast, a questionable news source. But however, as I say in the description, I also find megachurches to be highly questionable. And I've had from just what I've glanced at with the article. We're going to get into depth to it a little bit tonight. Just from what I've glanced at with the article, my family's had to deal with something not quite as extreme, but still something similar. And this is why I really wanted to hit into it because it's news, right? We talk about news here. We've been doing a lot of reading um, this past month, and it'll be good to get away from that just a wee bit. And there we go. Share. All right, so it's the Daily Beast, so we know it's garbage, but again, here we go. Inside the megachurch that has ex-members screaming cult, you've already got my attention. Thank you very much. You've already got my attention. Author Emily Shugerman. All right, sounds like it's perhaps not a Christian writing this. So you got to understand. Sometimes there's an ulterior motive behind these things. The Daily Beast is not traditional Christian values friendly. They do as much as they can, especially with the recent abortion news. Probably doing as much as they can to undermine the church. So I'm sure my Catholic friends out there are probably a little bit relieved that some of the heat is coming off of them with their um, basically taking the very loud, very, very frontline stance on abortion while and always dealing with the sexual allegations within their ranks, and it's not easy. So we'll read through this. All right, so let's start. His family would not be notified for nearly a week, but on the afternoon of May 14th, 2013, that was a while ago, a young man named Kwesi Sample drowned off the coast of Holden Beach, North Carolina. That's not too far from here. The 21-year-old was participating in a GPS-guided scavenger hunt known as geocaching with other young adults in his church, an Ohio-based megachurch called Dwell. The group was attempting to swim several hundred meters to locate a particularly difficult cache. But by the time they realized the distance was too far, it was too late. As they swam across the ocean inlet, Sample began to struggle and went underwater. An Ohio appeals court later wrote, the others were unable to save him. The church has said in court filings that it notified Sample. The others were unable to save him. The church has said in court filings that it notified Sample's family within hours of the incident. Okay, so first thing we've got. So now our topic is we've got a victim, Kwesi Sample. We've got the organization that he belonged to, a megachurch called Dwell, and the location was Holden Beach, North Carolina. Let me see, because I think I vacation a lot in North Carolina beaches. I love Topsail Island. I used to go to Outer Banks all the time. Um, let's see. Holden Beach sounds familiar. Let me see if I can locate, because I can actually maybe give some insights here. Oh wow, that's way south. Okay, so it's just south of the it's just out of the south of the Outer Banks, or it's very south of the Outer Banks. It's some more south than Topsail Island. It's in a different location. I will say, the Outer Banks and sometimes Topsail, though I noticed it's not so bad at Topsail most of the time. Rip Current, man, it's strong. You gotta watch it. You get too far out there, you get tired. Um, the Atlantic will take you down. So I wonder how several hundred meters. Well, that's pretty different. That's a pretty large wave. I wonder why they're doing it without any type of flotation device. Did you bring a raft or something? I don't know. All right, let's continue on. In a wrongful death suit that followed, Sample's family took aim at Dwell, alleging that church leaders were negligent in organizing the activity. But their complaints went well beyond the day's tragic events. In various legal filings, the family claimed church leaders exercised far reaching authority over its members, stretching past Sunday sermons and into almost every corner of their lives. The church called this idea absurd and said Sample's lawyers took their teachings out of context. It purposefully recruited impressionable young members, the family claimed, and taught them to blindly follow leaders who were chosen by God. Shortly before his death, they said Sample had even moved into Dwell's group housing to receive spiritual teachings and guidance on how to live and worship from its leaders. Okay, last part's a little weird. So we have a wrongful death suit talking about church leaders were negligent. We have a 21-year-old in this case. To me, it's just like I would like to know more about what they were saying and what they would do that was negligent. If they're just doing geocaching, 21-year-old, he's an adult. He's not a kid. He doesn't need adult supervision. He shouldn't need adult supervision. So I don't know what the deal is there. Church leaders exercise far-reaching authority over its members and getting into their lives, purposefully recruited impressionable young members and taught them to blindly follow leaders who were chosen by God. Okay, we're getting one side of the story here, and this could easily be a weird church, or this easily could be misconstrued. I want to be fair here because a lot of times churches take in people who are impressionable. There, you a lot of times a church takes in young adults and teenagers who are looking for something because, I mean, that's where many people learn to seek and find God. And then blindly follow leaders that might be just them emphasizing faith by leaders who were chosen by God. Well, we believe that God puts people in places for a reason. So this could easily be wildly misconstrued, or it could legitimately be just a weird church that's like, look, I'm God's chosen appointee. You're going to do what I say, and they're grooming kids and teenagers and young adults for to turn them into weird acolytes and some sort of weird rituals. This happens, and megachurches are known to do this. Again, we don't know this. We're only getting one side of the story. Now, the church said they called the idea absurd, said Sample's lawyers took their teachings out of context. Be interesting to see how this went down. Shortly before his death, they said Sample had even moved into a Dwell group housing to receive spiritual teachings and guidance on how to live and worship from its leaders. Okay, this is the weird part. So Sample's moving into group housing. So Dwell has group housing. Now, here's the question. Did Sample have housing beforehand, or was he kind of transient? Again, we don't know much about this Sample fellow other than he does have family at this point, and that they're upset that he has died, which is understandable. However, if there's a difference between, look, is he couch surfing on a bunch of friends' places because he doesn't have a place to live? Is he having difficulty paying rent? Or does he have a job, and is he well established and has a place that he holds down, and he just up, or he's living with his parents and he just ups and leaves? uh, because and are they just doing spiritual teachings and you know primers for being a Christian here, or is this more of a cult feel? It all comes down to how it's worded, not just worded on how they're doing or how the process works at the church, but also how it's worded in the context of this article. Because again, you can see you can wildly stretch the truth here to make it seem like something nefarious is going on when it's actually something benign or even beneficial and benevolent, that they're actually reaching out to troubled youths. They're giving them a place to stay so that they're not, on the streets. And at the same time, they're discipling to them. Or they're just looking for impressionable youths to bring in so that they could do their bidding and do all sorts of weird rituals. You don't know. You don't know from here. But that's what the article makes it sound like. But when you really look into it, we don't really know what they're doing. A lot of people who leave Dwell feel like they've been isolated. They feel like they've been manipulated, Adam Richards, an attorney for the family, told the Daily Beast in a recent interview. And one day they wake up and sometimes it's too late, and sometimes it's not. Too late for what? Um, One, your church shouldn't make you feel isolated, and it shouldn't make you feel like you're manipulated. We've talked about churches before in many contexts. Church should be a community and I know a lot of people hate this term, a community that you're plugging into, but that's what it is. You're taking, yourself, and I did this more with my family, and we, you know, became a part of our church community. I still have plenty of friends outside of church, but I have a very close and very intimate relationship with many of my fellow churchgoers at our congregation, because we have been through a lot together, because they've shared, you know, their struggles, losses, joys, and everything with me. And likewise, I've leaned on them, and they've been there for me when I've needed them, and for my family. The way they treat my family, that's what you shouldn't feel isolated. You shouldn't feel like you're completely dependent on them. That's the wrong feeling. You should feel like you're dependent on God, not necessarily dependent on everybody else, unless you are in, dire straits emotionally and spiritually, mentally, or whatnot, and you're just hanging on, and you just need some sort of rock or branch in those raging rapids of depression that you're in, to keep yourself whole. But it's that this part does sound weird. But again, then at the end he goes, and one day they wake up. Sometimes it's too late, and sometimes it's not. Too late for what? Was there more to this statement, or was he just leaving it in? Again, this is an attorney for the family, so there's an agenda there. Whether it's correct or not, I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying this part right here, it sounds a lot more ominous, but it really doesn't say anything. This part up here says more. A lot of people feel like they've been isolated, feel like they've been manipulated. They do that. Some churches do that. In recent years, a growing movement in Columbus, Ohio, has started sounding the alarm on the church, claiming it is manipulative, controlling, and even dangerous. Hundreds of aggrieved former members have formed an online support group. Nearly 200 have submitted testimonies to a local blog. The church even changed its name 2 years ago from Xenos, which it had used for decades, to Dwell, though its leaders claimed the move was unrelated to the bad press. Still, there has been no discernible response from public officials. Okay, all right, let's go through this, because I have thoughts. In recent years, okay, so there's a group. So obviously they've created enough of a stir that there's a movement in their locality saying that there's an issue going on. And you've got hundreds of aggrieved former members that have an online support group. Nearly 200 have submitted their testimonies to a local blog. I'm assuming these 200 testimonies are true. Either way, megachurches are huge. We're talking about tens of thousands of people coming in and out of there. It's very anonymous. This is why I don't like megachurches. I don't think they serve their purpose. But some people, I would rather you be going to a wholesome church and getting fed, even if it's a not more anonymous and you're not getting as much as tension and community feel from it as you can, but just to get there. But That's the other problem. These mega churches, a lot of times, like Hillsong, Elevation, these places, they're not feeding you spiritually. They're giving you kind of like Diet Coke of church, and that's not enough. That's you're missing what makes it great. And it just makes you feel better. Instead of feeling better, it doesn't motivate you to be a better person. It doesn't motivate you to pray to God, repent to God, to pray to God for things, to praise Him, to worship and do all these other things that comes along with being a Christian. There's more to being a Christian than just feeling good about yourself. In fact, a lot of times you should be feeling bad about some of the things you do, because that's part of the accountability process of understanding that you are a flawed person, right? And a lot of these places, they don't like to focus on negativity. It's a little bit of both. You can't do just one. You can focus on what's good about you and focus on the great things that God does with His love and blessings for us, and salvation and forgiveness, redemption, all those great things. But again, you're being forgiven for what? You're being redeemed for what? These are things that you've done and are doing. How do you help the process along by doing less of it? You got to focus on those painful parts. Anyway, so we've got a support groups online. Nothing really cited. They just a local blog. I mean, okay, 200 testimonies. Okay, so and this is the thing, and I assume this happens more often. When you're a bigger church, they're going to find people who don't get what they need. Even if you're a good church, there's just going to be some people that come through and they just don't get what they need, or they have a bad experience. They leave and they've got an axe to grind. And this is you just can't help it. And mega churches has more people flowing through there, so there's more opportunities. The percentages there's going to be more people who have a problem with the place, but actually being active and upset enough to do this, that's a little bit of step. That's worrisome. That hearing that is worrisome. The other part here is it changed its name 2 years ago from Xenos to Dwell. All right, first off, mega churches, stupid names like Elevation, like Hillsong. Names that really they sound like they mean something heavenly or holy or something. Dwell's no different. It's just kind of this kind of really nebulous church name. It doesn't say like Richmond Lutheran Church or Virginia Baptist or something like that. No, it's Dwell. Like, it's not a place. It's like, so I mean, what kind of church are you? Are you even a Christian church? We don't know. It's just a name. It's just a name. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you anything going in. I really dislike that. I really dislike that. I know there's places that do it. I think it's a bad thing. You should always be very upfront and open. We should all be proud to be Christian, and we should be putting Christ's name in our church name, because we are Christians. We worship Christ. When people walk in, they need to know what they're getting into. And I think that's standing by that. Xenos is a dumb name. I don't know if this is some of this not of this world thinking and turned into like a Xenos. I don't know. Xenos is a stupid name. It never should have been named Xenos, and I can understand them changing it, but the timing of the change, well, seems really convenient. They claim it move was unrelated to the bad press. I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I really don't feel like that. I mean, even if you're doing the good job, if you're doing good, sometimes it's better just to reset. I've got a stream coming up sometime when I can organize it, but I've got a friend of mine coming on. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to have a couple of other folks who are on the show, who have been on the show before contributing, coming onto the show to talk about the bad experiences at church, how they got what they experienced, why it was bad, and how they got past it. And one of them was a local church. It's a very close friend of mine. They went to a local church. It was a mega church. It's kind of like the city mega church. It had a name similar to Dwell or whatever, but it actually I think the word that they called it actually stood for the church name, and there was Christ in it somewhere. I'll let them talk about it. But super bad things happened, and the church ended up just falling apart, and then the church body fell apart. And I think that they've rebranded since. And sometimes that's what you do, right? There's no getting around it. But don't lie about it. Don't lie about it. That's so stupid. We're supposed to be, look, the way, the truth, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. We're supposed to be honest, be upfront for people. People will respect you more by being truthful, being open and honest, and being humble about things. Like, hey, we haven't really done a good job portraying ourselves right. We've got some bad press, and it's just we're trying to do to get past this negative connotation. So we've taken the steps of renaming our church so that we can get people past that. We've made some changes internally, past it, or saying, hey, look, Xenos is a dumb name, and it's just because of all this other stuff, it's time to make some changes, and the name's got to go too. Anyway. Over the last 2 months, the Daily Beast interviewed 25 former Dwell member followers whose membership spans nearly 4 decades. While the details of their experiences differed, the result was the same. Dwell, they said, was a church that drew them in when they were young or lonely, showered them with attention and compliments, and quickly turned dark. A church that pressured them to relinquish all their free time, to cut ties with their outside friends and family, and move into group homes with their fellow members. A church that dictated who they could date, where they went to school, and how they groomed their body hair. A church that pressured them to stay in abusive marriages and blamed them when they were raped. A church that warned them that walking away from Dwell would be walking away from God. All right. So, first off, they interviewed 25 former Dwell followers over the past, who had been there for the past, over the span of 40 years. You know, these members have been there. Were they named Xenos for 40 years up until then? Ugh. Anyway, for 40 years, they haven't talked to any. They don't mention talking yet. Anyway, they haven't mentioned talking to anybody who is a current member, and that might be because current members aren't talking to them. Because who wants to talk to the media when they're doing a hit piece on your church, whether it's justified or not? We'll see. The details of their experiences differed. The result was the same. They said it drew them in when they were young or lonely, showered them with attention and compliments, and quickly turned dark. So this sounds a lot like grooming. Again, people, when you're a church, you're naturally going to get people coming in when they're young. Especially when you're trying to draw people in. You will get people in who are curious, who are lost, who are looking to belong to something, and honest, or honestly just looking for a church, right, to belong to. That's not a big deal. Shower them with attention and compliments. The attention thing is like, yeah, you want to give. That's one of the things you want to do with you get new members. You want to make sure that, hey, bring you in. We don't want you to just cast aside. We don't want you to be a wallflower. We want to get you involved. Because again, how we treat our church at my church is, look, again, we operate. we are very friendly with each other. We've got a lot of inside jokes. Come on in, be part of it. Understand why we're having a good time. Be part of that good time. The compliments part, that's weird. A church that pressured them to relinquish all their free time. We will sometimes, churches will, especially small churches especially. We rely so much on volunteer activity. We try to get people. Some people take it as pressuring. We try to get people to volunteer their time to help out with church activities. What ends up happening most of the time, and it certainly happens, I'm part of it, is many of the core members of the church end up doing the vast majority of the volunteer work. It just happens. But we're always looking for somebody else to kind of help out with the community, right? Because like, we're a small church, right? We don't have a lot of research sources. This is a megachurch, though. Megachurches draw in ridiculous amounts of money, and a lot of times they can help, and they have a fair share of volunteers. But I don't know. I've never been a member of a mega church. I don't know how their volunteerism works, but it does sound weird. Cut ties with their outside friends and family. You shouldn't. You shouldn't try to get people unless the friends and family are actively trying to pull somebody away from God and their walk with Christ. You should never do that. In fact, you want to encourage them because you want to be a light for other people. The assumption here is these friends and family are unbelievers. They might be believers, right? But if we assume the worst, these friends and family are unbelievers. You want to be a light. You want to be the person saying, "Look, this is what my faith in God has done for me. This is what this community of this church has done for me. I want you to be a part of it. Keep those relationships. You don't cut people off. You don't. There's not. You lose a great opportunity for some discipleship there when you cut people off who are just joining and people are actually seeing how much it's changing. Move into group houses with their fellow members. Weird, 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 weird. That is weird. That does feel culty. And again, if this is a place where people are going when they're addicts or they are runaways or stuff like that. That's one thing. That's kind of like a homeless outreach or a crisis outreach, but you don't do that just for people who are looking to start a relationship with God. That's weird. A church that dictated who they could date, where they went to school, and how they groomed their body. Depends on how harshly they're talking about dictating here. Like I said, I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. I'm trying to give as much benefit of the doubt and explain why I think this is really creepy. What I'm reading here is very creepy, but I'm trying to take a neutral outlook on this and explain why maybe it might be the author of the article warping things to make it seem worse than it actually is. Because again, I don't trust the Daily Beast, and neither should you. But I don't trust megachurches either. So dictated who they could date. There are sometimes, especially with the younger crowd, you do want to be like, hey, look, there are some people you should stay away from. People who do not have your best interest, who are not interested in pursuing a wholesome relationship. These are people you should probably avoid, right? Because they're not going to help you with this endeavor to be a good Christian. They're not going to help you grow into this relationship where you are going to get married and start a family and do all this other stuff. That's the point, right? If a church might want to tell somebody, hey, you should avoid that. But you shouldn't be like that person unless something weird, like the person comes in and is being being detrimental to the church at large or to the person blatantly in front of us, or the person is giving you a story. This is how they are. You don't normally tell somebody that particular person stay away from. It's like, no, this is what you want to do. This is the mentality you should have when you are out there trying to find someone to start a relationship with and spend the rest of your hopefully spend the rest of your life with and start a family with. But you shouldn't be over controlling about what they're doing. Where they went to school, that's weird. That's just weird. I would warn people if hey, look, you're going to run into a lot of secularism in colleges, and how they groom their body hair. This is weird too. I'd like to know where that comes from. I'd like to know more about that. A church that pressured them to stay in abusive marriages and blame them when they were raped. All right, so you don't blame a person when they're raped. A person can put themselves in a position where they can, where it makes them more vulnerable to that, and you try to warn people for doing that behavior. But you don't blame the victim for an act perpetrated by a criminal, right? And you don't stay in an abusive marriage. You don't. These are two things that you don't do. There are times where you try to mediate churches, or mediate marriages, but I can't. That stuff gets really uncomfortable for me. That is a case by case basis where you have to because there's a lot of raw emotions. Obviously, if it's physical, um, or overly emotional, and I've seen them happen where two people they just need to split. Now, the instances that I've seen, there's almost always been infidelity involved, and when that happens, I mean that's your automatic. I mean that's your get out of jail card right there. If the other person is cheating on you, zoom, get out of there. You don't have to worry about it. It's the one thing that every that Scripture blatantly says you can get out. You can get out of your marriage for. You could talk to priests about annulments, but this isn't a Catholic church anyway. But you don't a church is always looking out for what's healthy, but sometimes people in a bad marriage, not an abusive marriage, but in a bad marriage, they're just in a bad time and they're not getting along and everything. A church should be trying to help those people out, help them heal, help them look and rediscover why they got married in the first place and grow their relationship, because we do want marriages are a holy thing. Marriages are a sacred thing. It's something that is very, very much talked about in the Bible. We want them to succeed, so we will try to do them to succeed. But if the point where people are in danger and people are abused, that's usually something different. And the church shouldn't be doing that. At some point, the church needs to go, look, we're going to be here for you, but you guys ultimately need to handle this stuff. And here's the last part. This is the part that I hate. Church that warned them walking away from dwell would be walking away from God. Nope, wrong. That's a megachurch. That is culty. If true. This is not what you want to see from a church. This is the church would be like, hey, God. Oh, to me, it's almost like I wish people would do exit interviews when they leave a church. So you can be like, hey, look, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? And you can take what they say. And some of it might be really good feedback. Some of it might be, well, they just didn't want to open their heart and open themselves up to the word of God and everything. And they just didn't like what they hear. But sometimes maybe you're doing something wrong, but you don't tell somebody that walking away from your specific church is walking away from God. Because church is a culture, and not all cultures. There's not one single good culture. There's not one single bad culture. You can walk into a church that you just naturally feel at ease with, and they're doing the right thing, and you feel at home. You might walk into another church where it's still a good church, but it's not your cup of tea, right? They don't. Maybe they sing newer music as opposed to traditional hymnals, and you're more of a hymnal person, and that gets you in the zone. Maybe the congregation's a little young for you, or it's a little bit too old, or maybe it's a counties versus city thing, and it's just you just don't get along with the people as much. You find another church where you really just you fit in better, and it's the same. You're getting the same wholesome content. It's just around people that you just naturally gravitate toward. Some people just naturally won't like each other or get along as well. It's all about finding. So you want to encourage people to get plugged in to try another church. You never try to. I hate this about denominations so many times that you've got people in there to put walls up and said, no, this is the right way. All those other jokers are wrong. I don't like it. But if somebody's walking away, you want them to keep a relationship with Christ, or you want them to try again to reignite that relationship with Christ. Point them in the direction of another good church. And if you are a good church, the other good churches that are in the area. You know where to give them some ideas how the other places work. We've lost a lot of our members. We just went through a pastor change, so a lot of times you lose members to a new up and coming church. I'm going to have the pastor of that church on my live stream at some point in the near future to talk about it. He's doing a great job. I'm glad. And some of those folks that went to that church are friends of mine, and I love them very much. And I'm glad they're finding a place that they're happy, because for one reason or another they were unhappy with some of whatever was going on with our church, which is fine. I'd like to have them back, but we're getting other people in as well. I want people getting into heaven. I want people being righteous, bettering themselves, doing all the good stuff. So there you go. Don't push people away. And if this is really happening, there you go. That's all you need to know right there. So, what they were describing, many of them said, was not church at all, not a church at all, but a cult. Yes, this part right here is all the red flag you need to know. In an interview with the Daily Beast, executive pastor Brian Adams rejected this label, calling it an anti-Christian slur, which it can be. It can also be an anti-cult slur. The church, he said, was just a group of committed Christians who are gathering regularly to pray and study the Bible and enjoy community. Everyone was invited to participate up to their own comfort level. I'd like to know if the author of this interview, the journalist, actually came and sat down. And now I already know why I don't like this. Ohio State. That in and of itself is a cult. Don't trust Buckeyes. We absolutely want everyone who walks through our doors to have a great experience, he said. What it comes down to is understanding what the Bible teaches, and do you want to follow it or not? Of the allegations of cultishness and spiritual abuse, he added, it's sad to hear, but we can understand it if someone says, what you're doing here, we want to pursue something different. Okay. This is a very PC, very PR-y way of responding to these allegations, which again, like I said, if I'm being new, if I'm trying to be really, fair to them, I guess, this is something that you might say. But again, the question is, how accurate are those accusations? Are they very accurate in what they're describing? If they are, you got to stop. You got to stop. Dennis McCallum, the 70-year-old founder of Dwell, is thoroughly convinced that his church is fighting a war with Satan. In his book, Satan and His Kingdom, one of 14 books he has published on Christianity, McCallum claims that the devil is a living being and that a spiritual war is raging against him around the world. Oh, okay. McCallum's claim the devil is a living being and that a spiritual war is raging against him around the world. Okay, so raging against against Satan. He claims Christians must act as soldiers, ready to endure extreme suffering, sacrifice their possessions, and follow their leaders' orders. Soldiers in the spiritual war, McCallum writes, aren't free to show up only when they want to. On the battlefield, exertion may often be to the point of utter exhaustion. Much of what he's saying there is correct, but again, how are you taking what these teachings are and how are you applying it? Are you using it for your own for your own personal gain, or what is going on here? And here, follow their leaders or orders. Which leaders and what orders are they? Because it's not always wholesome. It's not always correct. Former members who spoke to the Daily Beast say this pressure to be constantly on for Jesus pervades Dwell. New members start by attending Sunday sermons called Central Teachings and weekly Bible studies called Home Churches. But they are quickly urged to participate more and more in sex-segregated cell group meetings with a spiritual counselor known as a discipler, and leadership courses required to advance in the church ranks. There are meetings for new parents, college students, people in recovery, people who have lost a loved one, or were sexually abused as children. Members can easily find themselves attending a different Dwell event every day. Okay, first part's really weird. You constantly be on for Jesus. I'd be interested to see what that entails. I'm going to throw that away. New members start by attending Sunday sermons called Central Teachings. This sounds like secret church stuff where you're just learning the basics, I guess. I don't really like secret churches. And weekly Bible studies called Home Churches. They are quickly urged to participate more and more in sex-segregated cell group meetings. So again, you can overchurch a person, right? You gotta get to a level where you really want to be involved with this. You don't push a person to this. Look, God, we have occupations. God doesn't want us worshiping him 24/7. He wants us to enjoy the life that he's given us as much as we can and give thanks and worship him and remember him. in times where we aren't in need, and remember that we are, and to remember him when we screw up, or this is weird stuff right here. Meetings with the spiritual counselor known as a discipler, something that doesn't exist in the Bible. This is all new, and weird. And leadership courses required to advance in the church ranks. Again, no. Why are you doing this? Meetings, but from here, this is after that, everything gets normal. The meetings for new parents, college students, people in recovery, people who've lost a loved one, sexual abuses to children. That's all stuff you should see at all churches. Or churches big enough to have them. Where you've got support groups, basically. Churches should have that. This isn't weird. The rest of this stuff is weird. Members can easily find themselves attending a different event every day. I mean, I can see where a church has something going on every day of the week, but that should just focus around the different things. But you shouldn't be pushing somebody to be at church 5 days out of the week. That's too much. The meetings are not an explicit requirement, but members say the push to attend them, to be an active member of the church rather than a pew sitter, is intense. I'd like to know how intense the intense is. Is it just, bringing it up? Here we go. I found myself going to 6 meetings a week, said ex-member Justin Stapleton, 36, close to my age, joined a church about 15 years ago. The whole time they're telling me, you're not committed enough, but I'm spending all my time there. Well, that'll burn somebody out quick. Ex-member Callie Nicholson, a 25-year-old nutrition student and behavioral therapist, told the Daily Beast she struggled with an eating disorder while in Dwell. When her treatment program suggested she attend fewer church meetings in order to focus on recovery, she said her home church leaders were furious. They insisted that her therapists didn't understand her because they were of the world. Dwell terminology for anything outside the church. That is Christian terminology for everything that isn't faith in the Lord. In a blog post after the story was published, Pastor James Rochford said the pastoral staff spoke with the leaders of this young woman's group and heard a different account. This easily becomes he said, she said. Another woman who asked to be anonymous for fear of retribution from current church members said she was pressured to stop visiting her family once a month because it conflicted with Friday cell group meetings and Sunday house meetings. Members told her she was being unloving and wasn't serving the girls in the group well enough, she said. She cut back on the time with her family. No. Go see your family. Church is always there. Go see your family. That's bad. If this is, again, if it's true, if this is true, this is another red flag. Younger, unwed Dwell members are prodded to move into ministry houses that sleep up to 4 per room. Stapleton said a house leader told him the point of the cramped quarters was to prevent residents from masturbating. Once they are member, that doesn't stop. I was in the army. That doesn't stop. Once their members are expected to spend most of their free time socializing with house members or evangelizing to potential recruits. Studies are an afterthought. At least one person said they considered changing their major to something less rigorous to meet the demands of the church. Several former members told the Daily Beast they even turned down offers to prestigious out-of-state colleges in order to live in the ministry houses. All of this is cultish right here. All of that is cultish. The cramped quarters. First off, it's stupid. If you think that's going to prevent masturbating, you've never been in a barracks before. Everybody's jacking off. No, don't mean to offend the sensibilities of everybody, but that stuff happens. Dudes are going to do it. I don't know about the ladies. The ladies do what the ladies do. I don't know, but the guys are doing it. Several former members, and then the let's force everybody together. That's like I said. If this is going to all unwed, and this is the other thing. Several former members told the Daily they even turned down offers to prestigious out-of-state colleges in order to move in the ministry houses. Why are you doing that? Madeline Beal, a 24-year-old social work student, was born into the church, said she rejected a scholarship for the Art Institute of Chicago to attend Ohio State University at the behest of Dwell leaders and peers. Okay, both of those schools are garbage. She's a social work student. I have opinions on social workers and many of the people who do it. you know, like, is this if this is Buckeye fans starting a cult just to get people to to go Ohio State? Yeah, it's not a prestigious school unless you're playing football. Literally, that's it. I can't stand Ohio State. Boo. But seriously, I mean, again, why would you reject a scholarship to go to Ohio State at the Art Institute of Chicago? I mean, again, I have how prestigious is an art institute? What are you doing? If you're doing social work, why are you going to an art institute? I don't know. What people said to me, word for word, was just like, God has a plan for you here, and He's put you here, and you can't leave. She said that would be disobeying God. Okay. Okay. The pressure to share personal information in the ministry houses in order to hold each other accountable, as the church likes to say, is enormous. Beale said a common activity at house meetings was a game called Oys, Boys, and Joys, where members shared one good event, one bad event, and one romantic event that happened to them that week. If the house leader felt like one member didn't open up enough during the activity, she said, they would follow up later to pry out more information. Weird, also weird. This is not how a healthy community operates. You got to treat people, as human beings. We, at no point throughout Scripture, through any part of the Bible, do you see this crap going down. It's not. Even in Israel, we were talking about the Exodus in our Bible reading right now. Even in the Exodus, when all this stuff, all the weird stuff is going, that stuff's still happening, right? It's up to the leaders, it's up to the family, it's up to the tribe to go out and teach and discipline and do whatever. But they're not shoving all the youngins in a house together and doing all that stuff. This is all weird. This is bad. Again, assuming that this is correct, we're well into cult territory. Other members said this kind of personal information gathering is common, even outside the ministry houses. BJ Brown, 46, a former high school group leader, said she met weekly with two church leaders who tried to get her to reveal personal details of the students' lives. At one meeting, she said an elder asked her whether she thought another leader in her group was lesbian. Adams, the executive pastor, said in an email that gossip is a sin condemned in the Bible and is not some you better capitalize that B in the Bible, and it's not something we want to see any of our leadership practicing. That's weird. We just sit there and talk about people's personal problems and issues like it was a normal thing to do, Brown recalled. I can't believe how freely the leadership, including myself when I was there, openly talked about people's raw issues. Okay, first off, Adams, the executive pastor, doesn't know what gossip is. Gossip is different from, like, assuming we're going to throw out all the other cult-like things that are going on. But assuming, right, that this is a regular church and whatnot, and we've got a couple of small group leaders talking and everything about about their life group or about their Sunday school or whatever. They might talk about what's going on with other people so that they can better understand how they're supposed to, how they should react, how they should help out. There are things that you can do. Gossip is when you are talking about somebody's business with the express intent to sow dissent, bring a person down, that kind of stuff. Gossip has malicious intent. You can talk about people's business with another person to try to better approach it, and it's not gossip. So Adams is wrong. Fundamental misunderstanding of the Bible. Members said the group, how long is this? Daggone, I got forever to go. I'm about it. Whoa! We're gonna cut it. We're gonna cut it close. We're gonna. Members said the group inserted itself into many other areas of their lives, from who would be in their wedding to how they groomed themselves. Two women said they were told by other church members to shave their armpits because body hair was seen as potential turnoff for recruits. You should shave your armpit because it's disgust. Armpit hair on women is disgusting. So yeah, that somebody did the right thing. It was turn off for recruits. How about you just turn off for everybody? Nobody wants to see that crap. Many former members who spoke to the Daily Beast said that they were strongly discouraged from spending time with friends outside of the church unless they were actively recruiting them. Even spending time with Christians in other churches, they said, was seen as a waste of time because they were less likely to be recruited to dwell. Yeah, because people who go to actual church, to a real church, no a cult. Know when to stay away from a cult. Be like, no, that's not what we do at our church. That's weird. I'm not doing that. Ex-followers said the church also wielded outside outside influence on their dating lives. Oliver Long, 36, said McCallum often invited people over to discuss who was seeing whom, whether they were good for each other, and how the church could interfere if not. He said McCallum kept a list of people deemed spiritual enough to be dating, which he shared openly. Numerous other members told the Daily Beast they were told not to pursue someone inside Dwell because they were not deemed ready to date or because the other person was not spiritual enough for them. Adam said the Bible doesn't specifically say who you can and cannot date, and in our fellowship, we don't teach anything like that. After publication, the church said McCallum denied keeping such a list. Okay. I mean, Adam's right is there. I mean, my wife wasn't a believer when we started dating. She wasn't a believer when we got married. She wasn't a believer when we had our first kid. That's another story. But again, I mean, some people think that you need to stick. I mean, I've met people in certain denominations that you got to stay within the denomination because it's good for the denomination. No, I mean, look, you be the influence to the person. Either if they're a good fit, they're a good fit, right? And if they've got the potential for righteousness, they do. You be the example. You be the person, the influence in their lives to teach them. Okay, this is legitimate. You never know. You could marry when you're 25. You and your spouse live to be 83, and they change their mind that day, and you've saved them. Even if they didn't believe the up until that point, you have saved them. All right, so we're going to stop there for the night. I'm not going to do more than an hour on this. We've got a ton left, so that will list. That'll give us something else to talk about tomorrow, whenever. So, because we had a rain delay, because they had a rain delay, we are not going to. I might be playing softball tomorrow night, so we might not have a stream, but we will pick this up where we left it off last time. But first impressions after reading this, I mean, I'm only looking at a source, and like I said, source is spotty, but from what I'm seeing, this looks culty. I mean, there's no getting around it. This looks like weird megachurch. Weird. This is, I mean, and I don't know how a lot of megachurches work. This looks weirder than that, even megachurch stuff. So, I mean, again, there are some stuff in here that tells me you got some people who are just weirdos because they're not shaving their armpit hair. But yeah. All right, folks. With that said, we're going to turn it off for the night. Avoid churches like this. Go to a small church. Go to a church that acts like a neighborhood and not like a commune. Go to a church that acts like a family and not like a compound, right? People that you feel comfortable with, and again, make sure that they're preaching the word. But don't do this. Don't do this. Don't put yourself through this. You can turn your spirit, your spirituality, your belief is about as personal as it gets, right? You don't want to let somebody else put that in jeopardy. You should always try to take charge, take command. To believe in God no matter what. But again, at the same time, you want to avoid situations where um, your faith might be broken because of the actions of other people, and you don't want to get yourself influenced by the wrong folks. So be careful out there. Go to a place that's gonna nurture the fact that you are a responsible human being, a grown ass adult, and treat you as such. But at the same time, reinforcing the idea that while you are loved and you are responsible, um, for your actions, to be humble, and there's always room to get better and improve yourself. Love God, love other people, obey the commandments, believe in Jesus Christ, be baptized, do all those things. The fundamentals. Look for the fundamentals. It's the best way. It's the best and most honest way to get to help yourself and then disciple to others. So be good. Love all y'all. Have a good evening. God bless and good night.